Okay. Airplanes. So, what do I have to say about this? First off, personal taste-wise, some of the game's decision-making gets a little too heavy for my tastes, but overall I think it's a pretty decent game from what I can see. So, you have this, I guess we should look at the components a little bit. The board, solid but serviceable, nothing spectacular about it, but it works fine. And that's what you really like. You know, I mean, that's what you need in a game, and it's attractive enough. Counters all high quality, what you'd expect from Mayfair. Mayfair's a pretty good company with such things. Money. The cards are, again, good quality, very, very pretty. You know, I really enjoy being able to see the different planes. The only thing that I would ask on them is some historical blurb on each card, on each plane. Just a little bit of information about the planes themselves. The different colored backs, you could still trim that, you know, put a little border around it. And here, you could still indicate whether or not a plane had long distance capacity, which is important in game to keep track of. What's the disadvantage possible to it? Well, these are nice, clean, and plain, and sometimes you have passengers and such you want to put on them. Plus, of course, you know, the design staff would have to go do a little bit of effort researching the planes to make up those blurbs. But man, I'd love to look at some of the kind of cooler looking planes and read about them. And of course, I can just go wiki them. But I can't be arsed, right? And that's the level of research we're talking here, you know. Standard little wooden pieces for victory point markers and little pawns for some other game turn requirements. Dice, interesting little dice. First of all, nice quality, but the skull and crossbones, an important facet in the game. Now, let's see, because my battery's dying. Crap. Okay, we're gonna have to swap batteries, I think. A little bit more lifespan on this one. It looks like it's plugged in now. Okay, what about the actual play of the game? So, there's not a whole lot of complexity to this game. It's only a few pages of rules, and some of it's on the special effects tiles that takes up at least a page. Scoring takes up a page or two. The actual meat of the game is really, really simple. Much of the effort is set up between rounds and cleanup with the scoring included. So in your actual turn, you have a few simple choices. Buying an airport card, placing a tile, claiming a passenger tile, buying the advantages, the special abilities, and just pulling, essentially a pass, pulling a money for the action. Now, what's cool about the pass is, this is the timer on the game. And like in some other games, for example, Dominion, which I've been playing a ton of recently, you can, as a player, affect how long the game's going to take by doing this one action. You know, in Dominion it would be draining decks, etc. Here it's a singular action of pulling money out of that thing to end that particular round. So once you've gotten what you want for the round, that's all you end up doing for the most part. And although there are a few little actions you can take with regard to, you could buy, for example, the advantage chips at the end of the round, once you've done everything else, just to use your actions then instead of holding on to them later. And that might be worthwhile simply because these are a limited commodity. So with those limited actions, what you end up doing is there's not much you can do without airplane cards. You need the airplane cards to get airports that allow you access to the passengers, and you need the airplanes to claim actual passengers. You need to place the airport tiles into specific routes, which is the place airport tiles. And you end up with kind of this situation where you've got this web of choices. Once you've bought your planes, and you could start that decision making prior to buying the planes based on, what you see out there, what you think you might need. But once you buy your planes, you have this web of choices where you have to deploy your airports where they'll get you the best passengers and where you can bring your passengers, as well as where they're going to score you points. Over, this would be easier if it was a different kind of board, but essentially this little scoring section here that shows you the different destroying my board trying to do this, that shows you different kinds of the different points that you can get based on what actions you've taken. Now, these aren't directly, I do this and I get X points. What they are a set of different, I wish I could see it, and there's no copy anywhere else. A set of different things that at the end of the era you can score for. And most of the lines are penetration of the three major markets: the European market, the Asian market, and the African market. Whoever has sort of the most airports in that market is going to get a bonus in victory points. There are also victory points that are available for delivering specific passengers. And part of the replayability of the game is that the passengers change, not just from game to game, but also between the different eras. You're ensured, that you're going to get a new set of passengers each time. Not completely new. If things are left there, they stay out there largely. So wait, what am I saying? So yeah, so some of the passengers have victory points on them. Some of the airplanes have victory points on them. There's one other thing that gets you victory points, though, and this is probably the biggest set of the victory points, which is maintaining. It is the largest singular one, but it's probably where you'll get the majority over the course of the game, even compared to other things. Each player will be aiming for this. This is the one path to victory, but we'll get more to that because it doesn't. It's not as bad the sounding thing as it is. Which is sort of filling up all your planes. The person who delivers, the most passengers minus excess available capacity wins this slot. And it's far and away the most valuable slot. I'm going to show it without folding. It's this top slot here. And you can see you'd really have to kind of dominate at least two of the markets to be in the same range as you would be for getting the most profit, and that's a tough thing to do, and you probably can't do better than that. However, there's nothing that says you can't dominate markets and still fulfill all of your passengers or many of your passengers. So that's why although it's the key to victory, I think, is making sure that you fulfill your passengers nearly exactly and get as many passengers as you can fly, which requires purchasing more planes. It requires being able to grab the passengers in the right timing. There's a whole bunch of different factors in terms of each time you take a turn, you may be giving up an opportunity to say grab a passenger that you'll never get again, because somebody else grabs that passenger. And it's not simple and obvious whether or not a person's just going to grab that passenger. There's no clear, this is the best move to take at this moment, because you've got to compare the grabbing of passengers to the placement of airports. Whoever gets into an airport first might be blocking it off. And the game, the terrain of the game kind of changes a little bit if you're playing in 3 players. I think for it as well, where less people are allowed into each market. So the major cities only hold 2 people instead of 3, which changes how many people have access to the passengers. And the major cities are important because they are the only place you can pick up passengers, except for the overflow extra European or non-European passengers. So kind of dominating those is kind of important. And what it really comes down to is you have this agonizing, in my opinion, not quite optimization, but matching problem, where you have to, I have to get my airport in the right home city to pick up the passenger. I have to get it in the right destination to deliver them. And that's done over, a fairly large selection of different passengers over different cities. So that becomes a really painful thing. Unlike a game like Merchant of Venus, which has sort of a similar kind of, you have to pick up certain commodities at certain places and deliver them to other places and evaluate the worth of doing so. In that game, at least the commodities that you're going to pick up are locally placed near something that makes sense, the planet they come from. And that's the important information. The important information in this is, do I go to that city or can I go to that city? And then what's there? So locally placing, say, Berlin near Berlin wouldn't really help much because you're not looking at transporting goods over the geography particularly. You're just interested in who dare, right? So maybe having, the Berlin control markers up near the Berlin passenger status would help a little bit, but then you still have to find the destinations, and that would make a more complicated board in terms of presenting the destinations. Anyhow, all in all, that it ends up being kind of this obnoxious matching situation for the actual, can I get this here? What do I need to do to get this here? Which irks me a good deal. Playing solo, it was something of a bitch, but it was also equally annoying, at least, playing it 2-player. Eventually, though, so at the beginning of the game, it's actually not a big factor because you don't have that many options. So you can seek out the best ones, try to remember what you're doing, and place your things there. As the game gets more and more, gets into the kind of the middle period of each of the second and third eras, I found that I'm just reassessing again and again, hey, what is my best place to pick up a passenger? What do I need to do that? And I just feel like I'm whirring through those same choices again and again. It's not like I can make a choice, put it aside, I've done it. I mean, yes, I can make the choice of, I'm buying that plane, and now that's gone, and I have to work with that. But what I can't do is I have to have all this pre-planning going on, and then it's sitting there on the stack where I'm going to forget things. And I just don't like that kind of game. However, if you do like that kind of thinking, trying to hold, your plan in mind, trying to remember what the fuck you're trying to do, right, throughout the entire game, if you don't mind that, the actual planning isn't that painful, and it's kind of pleasant. So once you do that kind of matching and optimization problem once, and the problem in this game is that you have to keep doing it. That's the same kind of problem I have with a lot of yours. In terms of level of sort of simulation quality to the game, I would say the simulation level to this game is about equivalent to your average family game. More than Monopoly with its stupid moving around a board that doesn't seem to represent anything. But, on the same level as a number of Milton Bradley type games that were brought out. that give a little bit more feel like you're actually doing something than anything else. And that's actually about all I ask for from sort of a fun little diversion game. I'm not expecting a lot of simulation quality to something like this. I don't think this really gives you a lot, and that's fine. Most Euros, and I will count this among them, because it feels a lot like a Euro to me, most Euros don't give that much. They give about the same level of accuracy to what you're simulating as a game of Monopoly does. You know, to me it was kind of cool when Acquire, when I first grabbed Acquire, long ago. I mean, I got it not long after, you know, it was, while it was still being printed, let's put it that way. But I first got your Acquire as a used copy, probably in the mid-'70s. And, hey, it's still being printed now, yeah, okay. And sort of the big jump for me for that game was, hey, this sort of represents something. It's kind of like Risk sort of represents something, right? But Monopoly didn't, and a number of other games didn't. Sorry, what the hell is that about? Well, it's an abstract. But what I find really funny is kind of how disconnected most Euros really are from anything. And that's just, that usually goes too large a step. This game at least connects you to the topic in some sort of way. And the thematic aspects, the planes on the cards and everything, that's great. But in terms of topical connection, which I find very, very important, this matches, you know, what I kind of expect a game to do. And far too many Euros don't. Far too many I feel like I'm just, you know, picking cards or buying tiles or something like that, and I don't really have any actions that relate to the task that I'm actually performing. Alright, anyhow, not a game that I have a lot of fun with, but I see nothing wrong with it, and it looks pretty damn interesting. In terms of the balance of the different, you know, what different strategies are there, other than the different markets, or, oh yeah, I'm going to go for victory points on planes versus, and passengers versus, you know, markets or whatever. There is just this one big overriding, you must do this. Why is that not a big deal? Why is that not terrible? Well, because that one thing is keeping your airline profitable in comparison to the other airlines. And if you consider like 18XX, you know, that's your goal. I want to make money, right? Okay, but this game doesn't make that clear. It doesn't make it simple and clear in the same way that an 18XX does. That, yeah, this is the one thing you absolutely need to do. So instead, you have kind of the point salad, you know, approach to a game where, hey, there's this that's worth victory points, this is worth victory points, this is worth victory points. And, you know, buying a plane that gives you a victory point, that looks pretty good. It's hard to come by victory points, right? Well, it depends on the playing. In the two-player game, two people going for profit, one of them gets it, the other one gets second place, right? Same with the markets, so that the victory point cards and counters became more important. Playing in multiplayer, I see that the race for the profitability is important, very important. But here's the thing, only the top 3 players get it. So if you're guaranteed 4th or 5th place, you don't want to fight for it anymore. Or if it's too hard to fight because you've lodged yourself with way too many excess passengers from the past era, you don't want to do it anymore. But, you know, those would be mistakes in the long term, because overall in this game you absolutely want to make sure that you deliver some profitability with your passengers. I don't think you have a chance otherwise.